Today, on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat, the 31-foot Contender project moves from fiberglass to paint with an unexpected change of plans.
I had 5 different colors I was putting into this boat. We didn't want to see a definite break of every different color. We wanted it to be a nice slow fade through.
FS Boating editor George Labonte joins Chris White on his 15-foot Pathfinder, rigged up for hardcore flats fishing.
Now this just goes to show you it doesn't take a total restoration to make your dream boat, but with a few modifications, Chris had the perfect boat for him.
And Brian meets with the owner of a rundown 20-foot Paramount, who's looking for some serious upgrades.
All right, so now Steve has me excited. We're talking about putting a big outboard on the back of this little 20-foot boat. I can't wait to build this thing.
In the rigging bay, Steve is tasked with outfitting a boat with brand new outriggers. All coming up on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat.
All right, so if you guys recall, last week Roberto and the guys were wrapping up the 31 Contender fiberglass work. The fuel tanks were in, the console got installed, now it's ready to hand it off to the paint crew. Now, the guys initially just had to do some non-skid work on the deck on the inside, but after this customer came to the shop a couple times checking out his boat, he saw a metallic paint job and he just thought it was over the top. He started getting ideas. He was asking me, hey Brian, can we fit this in? Can we do this? I want to make every job come out of here a 10. And if the customers are willing to do it and they want to spend the money, I'm all about making it happen. Mike and the guys got a lot of work cut out for them, but I can't wait till you guys see what we have coming.
Now we're on to the 31 Contender. This thing's getting work from top to bottom. We finished up the non-skid and we buffed out the hull. Now we're going to start doing the metal work. The handrail, the T-top, the leaning post is getting a complete refinish on it. We're going to start off with a metal primer, Wash Prime CF. Made by All Grip, so it's going to work well with the rest of the materials that we're putting on top of that. When putting metal primer on any type of metal, you want to make sure you cover the metal completely. You don't want to have any bare spots. This is going to create a nice watertight bond to the metal and keep any corrosion problems that you're going to have down the road out of it. Once you've sprayed it, you got to wait a minimum of 1 hour. But the positive end is you can wait up to 6 months to spray anything over top of it, which gives you a nice window of workability on it. With that being said, there was no way Brian's going to let me wait 6 months to paint this metal, so we went straight into it. We're going to go ahead and use the Allcraft 2000 Jet Black. Really going to make this metal work pop. When it's all said and done, this thing's going to look beautiful, but it's not easy. It's very tedious. You got to give yourself some type of a map, because if you don't put a map inside your head, you're going to get lost. And you either have a dry shoot or you're going to reshoot the same thing you just sprayed 5 seconds ago. And it's just going to make the job horrible.
All right, so the paint crew is doing an awesome job on this 31 Contender. The first thing they started with was the T-top and the forward handrail, and they came out incredible. The black, jet black finish is just really bright and brilliant. Now Mike's got his work cut out for him on the hull of this thing. I wanted a tapered, faded out boot stripe. I didn't even tell the customer he was getting this boot stripe, and it really takes a lot of extra effort to do it. But at the end of the day, when it's finished and it's completed on a boat, it looks like no other boot stripe in the world. You can't do this or duplicate it in a piece of vinyl tape, so it's really going to look sharp once we fade it and blend it in with the clear coat.
So this particular job, Brian wanted a really cool metallic color, something I haven't really seen on any other boat, blue steel metallic. So I talked to Brian and I told him I wanted to go with the SE, Allcraft 2000. It's a base coat, clear coat system, it's user friendly, and it's going to be an all-around better paint job. With the base coat, it dries really fast. So I was able to put on multiple coats and get it to lay down properly pretty quick. Now we let it dry, and then we're on to the boot stripe. Now we're going to go a little different with this boot stripe than your standard. We're going to start off small and work our way to a thicker boot stripe and back. Not only that, we're going to fade it from a silver all the way back to like a charcoal black. So I went ahead and I laid the fine line down, marked out the boot stripe the way I wanted to. Biggest thing that you gotta worry about is making sure it's bagged off properly. You don't want any bleed throughs onto the base coat that's on the hull. Now with this paint job, I had 5 different colors I was putting into this boat. We didn't want to see a definite break of every different color. We wanted it to be a nice slow fade through. You know, I just took my feet, I walked the boat and I broke it down into 5 different sizes. And I kind of just put tape in certain areas. And then I sprayed those areas heavy. You know, as I got to the end of it, I just kind of started pulling away from the boat and just letting it kind of dust into play. By the time I got the boot stripe completely laid out, I started spraying the clear. As I was laying this clear on, I was really seeing the boat come together. The metallic was popping. After walking around the boat, I realized it's probably one of the coolest paint jobs we've put out in a long time. We executed the boot stripe exactly the way we wanted. You cannot see where it starts or stops.
When we return, in the rigging bay at MCU, Steve works to give an offshore angler a serious upgrade. This segment brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
At Yamaha, reliability is a family tradition. Meet the next generation. 4 new advanced technology-inspired inline 4-cylinder performers. Bred from the reliability and boater satisfaction that is part of Yamaha's DNA. They prove that when power gets lighter, faster, stronger, and smarter, boating gets even better. And more satisfying for boaters like you.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us as MCU's rigging master installs a necessary upgrade for offshore trolling high-quality outriggers.
All right, so I had this good repeat customer come into the shop, and he's getting his annual service done, and he asked me about installing some outriggers on the boat. And I pointed him right directly at the Taco Grand Slams. They're gonna mount right into hardtop. The retractable poles work. They're gonna fit in his cabin when he's not using them. So I explained to him that if he picks out the set that he wants, I'll get them installed within a day. He was all about it. He told me to go right ahead and get them on the boat.
We had the Bayliner come in. The guy wanted some outriggers put on his hardtop up there, and so he dropped the boat off. Brian came and got me. We walked out. We had a few discussion of idea where the guy would like to have them. He wanted them as far back as possible. So, okay, that's all the information I need to know. So I took some measurements. I got the measurement of the handle length and the frame of the T-top. So I would have to measure away from that, from the outside and the backside, to make sure we had clearance to be able to put these outriggers out without the handles hitting anything. So it's real easy to do. So I just measure off from the outside in, and then from the back end, put me a little X, jump over to the other side, do the same thing. Now I've got to cut a hole for the outrigger that passes through the top, so I get the correct hole size. Run through with the hole saw, I scarred it on the bottom, and then I jumped up on the top. You don't want to blow your holes for the mounting screws right away, because you want to keep the outriggers as straight as possible with the boat. So I dropped them in, I went up on the bow and I looked, went back and forth a couple times, and then you want to try to get it as perfectly in the center of that circle that you cut out. That way you have no rubbing when you go to turn the outrigger out and in. I've seen a lot of outriggers out there that are kicked like this or kicked like that when they're, you know, supposed to be straight back, and it just looks stupid. So that's, you know, I made sure they were lined up perfectly straight with the back of the boat, and then I drilled my mounting holes, grabbed some hardware, put some caulking and 5200 around them, and put the backing plates on, tighten them down, installed the handles. Yes, after I get the handle in, I'm going to go ahead and do a test run on it, back and forth a few times, get everything working, get all the grease working in, and install the collapsible poles. So, of course, on the base of it, that slides into the nice little locking pin they have on that. Put some protective on them. Well, now that I got the poles in and greased up, I'm going to extend them, and I'm going to put my rigging in it for them. These are only going to be single runners, so real easy to do, not complicated. I've done enough of them. I can do them in my sleep now. So the owner of this boat, he has never had a set of outriggers. He just told me to set it up how I would like it. And they got nice release clips, so when a fish does hit that bait when it's on the outrigger, the release clip is going to release the line, it's going to put slack in the line, and then all of a sudden the rod's going to take up that slack and it's going to set the hook for you. Yeah, if you want to get a good spread behind the boat, You need outriggers, definitely. He's going to love these.
All right, so just as I figured, Steve got that outrigger job knocked out in no time. Those taco outriggers came out incredible. They really look good on the boat. It's ready to go offshore again and start fishing. He's going to be super excited to use these things, and I can't wait to see the fish that he brings in.
When we return, FS Boating editor George Labonte joins Dreamboat owner Chris White aboard his decked-out 15-foot Pathfinder in this week's One Man's Dreamboat segment. This segment brought to you by Bennett, superior by design.
50 years ago, Bennett Marine changed boating forever, inventing the trim tab, helping boaters get on plane faster, reduce bow rise, correct listing, improve efficiency, and increase performance. Over 1 million systems later, worldwide, we offer durable and dependable trim tabs and hatch lifters for all boat sizes. Your only source for both hydraulic and electric systems. Industry-leading innovation, plus the best warranty and service available. Get Bennett on board and enjoy the ride.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us for this week's One Man's Dreamboat segment with Florida Sportsman Boating editor George Labonte as we feature anglers who have already launched their dream. Florida Sportsman began these features 30 years ago, and the dreams just keep getting better.
Today we head up to North Florida to meet up with Chris White. Chris has a Pathfinder 15T that he uses exclusively to flats fish in North Florida. We were greeted with a beautiful morning, and I'd heard a lot about how well these boats run in shallow water, and I was very excited to see how she ran.
I grew up in Jensen Beach, Florida. Moved down there when I was a teenager from up north and got into fishing pretty good. Did a lot of wade fishing, so we didn't have boats when we were in high school, and then when we did, it opened up a whole new world, and ended up, after college, moving over to Jacksonville. And when I got here, I realized fishing was completely different.
Now up here in North Florida, they've got big tide swings and a lot of treacherous bottom. You get back into the backwater there, you can really get yourself into a jam. The Pathfinder 15T is a perfect boat for this application. I can see now why you like this boat and how shallow it goes. Why don't you tell me a little bit about this area and what the tide does in here and how your boat works for it.
We do get a tide swing. We're just north of St. Augustine, so the water fills in from the north, fills in from the south. So you have to really understand where you're going, what you're doing. If you slide back in some areas, you need to really know when to get out and actually where you're going, because if you come back in too far, you may get stuck. And that was one of the reasons why I opted to go with this boat.
Well, this one seems to do the job really well.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Now this wasn't Chris's first project. He's been through a few boats. He started out with a Ginu, went to a Carolina skiff, and also a Key West center console. Each of those boats had attributes that he found useful but not exactly right. We think the Pathfinder 15T was a perfect fit for him.
So I had the Key West, and I was really looking for something that gave me what I had out of the Ginu, gave me the stability I had out of the Carolina skiff, but had the fit and finish of the Key West. And I stumbled across the Pathfinder 15T and 17T. I had posted my Key West for sale or trade, and magically someone actually wanted to trade straight up boat for boat his 15T, which was pretty stripped down, for my Key West at the time. So he came up from down south. I met him about halfway. We test drove each boat, shook hands, swapped keys, and the rest was history.
Now when Chris picked this boat up, it didn't need a ton of work, but there were a few things that really needed to be modified just to suit his fishing style.
So when I picked up the 15T, I brought it back home, and really it was just blank canvas. And what could I do with it? And I knew on the Carolina skiff, I had a polling platform off the back, and I knew that that was probably the first place to go. Saw a couple new skiffs that were coming out, saw the design on those and more curved architecture, and one after that, and found someone that could fabricate it for me. So after I got the polling platform on there, fished it for a little bit more, saw what I wanted to do, and added a casting platform. I picked one up on a for sale ad. And then after that, it really just kind of started flowing. So I wanted to put in a grab bar, designed a grab bar, went back to the same fabricator, came back up, wanted to lay out what I wanted. So definitely needed a cup holder in there. Added a mount for GPS, so that way I can make sure I'm tracking where I'm going and coming from. So I was just laying everything out. I knew I had one shot to run all the wires at once. So when I ran everything for the GPS, I put in a trim switch, rewired the trim switch off the motor, ran it back through the boat, up through the grab bar and just have it set up top, so everything's done on the fly in the moment and I don't have to take my eyes off of where I'm going. All the wiring was replaced. I made a decision that I needed to add in water fuel separator, put that in the front hatch, replaced all the fuel lines in the boat as well, and just did everything all at once. So that way, if you're in there, you might as well do it versus piecing things together. It was way more cost effective for me, and it kept the workload actually down because you're just in one place at one time. On previous boats, I had traction on it. I wanted to add something this time. I didn't want the boat overly done. I wanted to keep that same clean, aesthetic, classic look and very simple but functional. So I did the install myself, so all the traction was laid down, and I can tell you it's definitely quieted down the boat a lot. So when it comes to power, the boat has a 40 horse Yamaha 2-stroke on it, it's 2003. The hull's a 99, so felt really good about it when I got it. No issues with it. So really it's just about keeping up general maintenance. And I figured if that was fine, there's no reason to make an upgrade. Just go ahead and spend my time on the actual inside of the boat and everything on that technical side. So outside of my normal career, I've always had a passion for drawing, painting, just all different kinds of art. And when I really got into fishing a lot, there was just this link that, start drawing fish and marine art. So being able to get out on the water kind of is like an inspiration point for me from doing my artwork. It doesn't mean that I'm catching fish every single time, it's just being outdoors and kind of being connected or reconnected and grounded. So it gives me that opportunity to just kind of disconnect from the hustle and bustle of everyday life and then kind of ground myself and focus when I go back to my artwork, which I think gives me like a clear headspace so that way I can come up with more things and get creativity flowing.
At the end of the day, I thank Chris for sharing his story with us, and we provided Chris with a gift from our friends at Surehold. Now this just goes to show you it doesn't take a total restoration to make your dream boat, but with a few modifications, Chris had the perfect boat for him.
After spending $5,000 on the hull and engine, and spending $5,000 on repairs and custom modifications, the cost of Chris's dream boat comes to a total of $10,000. When we come back, Brian meets with the owner of a stripped-down 20-foot Paramount who's looking for a complete refit. This segment brought to you by Armstrong. Experience the Armstrong Advantage.
Do you have the Armstrong Advantage? In its most basic form, an Armstrong outboard bracket improves the efficiency of your outboard motor. This equates to a faster time to plane and higher top speeds. The list of advantages continue with improved maneuverability, added space, and a quieter ride. Adding a swim platform accompanied by an Armstrong boarding ladder will certainly add to your day out on the water. Isn't it time for you to gain the Armstrong Advantage?
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us as Brian checks out his latest project, a completely gutted 20-foot Paramount in need of some serious attention.
All right, so a little while back, a good friend of mine, Steve Miller, told me he was looking for a 20-foot Paramount to use as a bait fishing boat. So when he goes out fishing offshore with his 36 yellowfin, he's got a little boat to go run around in the bay in and maybe go to the sandbar with. I told him to give me a shout, let me know when he finds something. Well, he didn't give me a shout and ask me to go look at it, he just actually bought it. He must have had too many beers when he bought this boat, because he dropped it off for me to look at, and he wasn't around. I had a chance to look at some things, and the boat needs a lot more than he probably thought it did. I told him it's time for him to come over and me to explain some things to him and find out really what he's looking to do with this thing. All right, Steve, listen, so you got 36 yellowfin.
Yep.
And then you bring this thing to me. What's the deal?
Well, 36 yellowfin's fun, but it's not always the easiest boat to just jump on, run out with the family, and go around. So I wanted a little boat that we could run in the river, go offshore when it was nice, go catch bait for a tournament day if I don't want to put the big boat in. And this thing looked like a gem, so I picked this up and wanted to see what you can do.
All right, so this is basically what you picked up, minus the fact that I started to cut the transom because I wanted to see how bad it was. It's gone, it was shot.
Yeah.
So we're gonna tie into the stringers. You want a big outboard on the back, right?
Yep.
Thinking 300-400 horse probably?
Well, gonna try 400. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. All right, so now Steve has me excited. We're talking about putting a big outboard on the back of this little 20-foot boat. I can't wait to build this thing. This boat came with no deck in it, no floor, no console. What are you thinking on the console?
I want a console where I have some good rod storage and, you know, a decent amount of space on the dash for a decent screen.
So we're thinking maybe not even a T-top, a little more open bay boat style.
For sure. Yeah,
without a top.
bay boat style, exactly.
What do you want to do about the back transom area? Do you want to close this in and make it like a seat for the wife and kids or something?
Exactly.
Because this can be like your sandbar boat when you don't want to take the big boat out. So I've got a forward bulkhead up there I've got to remove, get rid of those old speakers. How are we talking about stereo equipment? Probably do something really clean and nice and hide it under the gunnels?
Yeah, probably.
All right, cool.
I like the clean look.
So we got an 87. What are we thinking about color?
Maybe all white, keep it clean. Maybe a little
Black
stealthy. They have some black trim on there.
Go
Maybe
kind of like the look of the yellowfin a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe some black powder coat on the leaning post, but yeah, maybe white and black, maybe even silver. I'm not sure.
I'm liking the silver, man.
I do like
I'm
silver.
liking the silver. This could
And
be like a
silver
little
looks good.
silver bullet. Yeah. All right, so after talking with Steve, I've got some really great ideas for this 20-foot Paramount. Number one, it's the big outboard. That's what's got me excited about this project. So I want to make sure this transom's solid and it's really overbuilt. So we're going to go back with a good marine ply, laminated fur, and we're going to bond it all back in with multiple laminations of biax cloth, and we're going to put this thing together super strong, 2 to 3 times more than it ever was. Steve is going to be able to put a 500 on the back of this boat one day if he wants to. Once Roberto and the guys got the transom mostly addressed, it was time to remove the rest of the cap of the boat. We had to get access to the forward bow of the boat because we're going to change the whole casting platform. And I've got some awesome ideas to change to that forward bulkhead. Now that Roberto and the guys have that forward bulkhead out of the boat, it's time to address the stringer issues. Now the issues that we're dealing with are the deck heights and the levels. These boats were naturally aft heavy, and that was with a 2-stroke engine. Now we want to go with a big 4-stroke with a lot of offset. We're trying to make a high-speed performance boat. So I had Roberto sister the stringers, raise the deck heights up, and actually tie transom knees up into the back part of the transom. That's going to provide a lot of structural support to the back end of the boat. There's something I've been thinking about for a little while now working on this project, and it was changing the whole look of the boat. And I think the biggest thing we could do to change the look on this boat was to change the design of the cap. These things are very datey looking. I mean, it looks like it came from Miami Vice. I wanted to change that. And by cutting the cap down a couple inches, that would really make that happen. Now, Steve has no idea I want to do this, but I'm really excited. This is really going to change the boat, and I think he's going to like the idea. I can't wait to see this done. So as Roberto and the guys work on this cap, which is a huge undertaking, there's still a lot of other things that need to be addressed in the glass shop. I'm ready to see it in paint because I've got some really cool ideas on putting on the outside of this hull. I can't wait to put this boat together and see it all rigged.
Next week on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. At MCU, the 20-foot Paramount is readied for a custom paint job. FS boating editor George Labonte joins Dreamboat owner Howard Priestman aboard his fully restored 1977 46-foot Whitaker. The 31-foot Contender project gets a full repower in the rigging bay. And Brian helps the local Environmental Studies Center rig a power pole on their exploration boat, the River Scout. The filming of Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat has been shot on location at Marine Customs Unlimited. You dream it, we build it.